Hello and welcome to the channel. This is Valueth, and today we'll be doing Dawn of the Infinite's Upper. As usual, I'm playing with my tank buddy MattBro, but everyone else in the group are all pugs from the PTR. If you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I would very much appreciate it. We are running this key at level 18 with both fortified and tyrannical affixes, and all of the players are using the new tier sets. I myself am running my Holy Paladin with a standard talent spec, but this time I'm trying out Holy Prism since they buffed it again. I'm still running the standard crit haste spec for Holy Paladins with Pip's Trinket as well as the Waycrest Manor music box. These first two packs have a large number of tiers of Vanguard. I like putting bleeds on the entire group. I was lucky to have a group that utilized a lot of their CC kits to ensure a significant portion of these casts were interrupted. However, you can see here that I had 3 stacks of this bleed and it was chunking me down real fast. For us as healers, we need to be prepared for this bleed, and we need to make sure we have this bleed loaded into whatever unit frame you're using for healing, so you know who in your party needs extra attention. This next pack has more of the same, other than the addition of Spurlock Timesworn Sentinel. As you'll see, this caster will jump away from the group and start casting Binding Grasp, which will place a sandy circle at its base, and one player of the group will have to enter this sandy circle and interrupt its cast. Not doing so will cause the targeted player to take significant amount of RK damage every second for 10 seconds. At higher difficulties, this will likely 1 or 2 shot the player. The next pack of any interest is the Timesworn Maiden, and the only thing we as healers should pay attention to is Ancient Radiance. It is an AoE damage ability that she casts almost immediately after being engaged. I can see this ability to do some medium to high damage on higher level keys, and if you have a tank that chain pulls the last 2 pegs, this can get really dangerous very fast. The other spell to watch out for is Orb of Contempt. She sends out an orb in the direction of a party member and it boomerangs back. That's it, don't get hit by it and you'll be fine. The last pack before tier is the Timesworn Keeper. He has 2 abilities, only one of which is of any importance to us as healers, and it's generally not much of an issue at all. Every once in a while he'll cast Temporal Strike, which spawns swirlies on the ground, just move away from them, and you'll avoid damage. If you or anyone else stands in them, it does low to moderate damage. The first boss in here is Tyr, and he has several abilities that does significant AoE damage to the group. The first one is Spark of Tyr, which targets 2 players, inflicting arcane damage every 2 seconds to all players within 8 yards. If you are the target of this, immediately make sure you do not stack it on top of the second person, and make sure you don't stand on top of the group. It is then the healer's job to dispel one of them, which is going to cause a significant amount of AoE damage to the group. If you are a priest, you could mass dispel this ability, but then you would have to make sure that you're prepared for the double damage that's going to come at you fast. The tank buster is called Titanic Blow, which strikes the tank for a decent amount of damage and pushes him back. Your tank should be able to deal with this without your assistance. Dividing Strike is the next ability you as a healer will need to prepare for. It is a group soak where everyone should stack within the circle. It deals a moderate amount of damage to the group, so make sure everyone's decently topped off before the hit goes out. The biggest issue we as healer will have on this fight is the intermission phase, where everyone runs around and collecting orbs. If the orbs go to the center pillar, it does a significant amount of damage, you can see in my run here. We as healers should probably try to stay as close to the pillar as possible to make sure we have everyone enraged. This is especially important for preservation evokers. Fist Weaving Monks will have some trouble here as well, as there's nothing to hit, so you will need to rely on your ranged healing spells during this time. Now this dragon looks innocuous enough, but as soon as it starts casting Infinite Fury, it's going to do a ton of damage to the group, and you're very likely going to have to use some cooldowns to survive it. As a Holy Paladin, I had to cycle through Divine Toll and Daybreak to heal through the damage. Here we have 2 more of these dragons, and both of them are going to be doing their spiel with damage. Make sure you have some cooldowns available to heal up your group. As with the lower section of this dungeon, this one also has a platform of death, and we immediately encounter the worst mob of them all in my opinion, the time stream anomaly. This sand-colored beast from hell has an ability called Bloom, which hits one player for a high amount of damage, which then gets duplicated to a random other player. You can see here in the beginning that it hits the DK and then starts rotting down the tank as well. This platform has a lot of magic damage and casters, so be prepared to use any of your CC or interrupts to help mitigate that damage. The Infinite Rift Mage has an ability that is highly recommended to interrupt, and that is Infinite Burn. If successfully cast, it does a significant amount of AoE damage to the group. There are also these smaller mobs called Temporal Deviations, which when they die explode for a decent amount of damage. If you see several of them are about to die at the same time, make sure you have a CD available and pray to whatever deity your tune subscribes to. Next up is this manta looking thing called Chronaxi. The one ability she has is Temporal Link, which links herself to one other player in your group. Any damage you do to Chronaxi during this link will be transferred to your teammate. As you see here, we're all trolling a little bit here and decided to murder our DK buddy. The Trash Before Time Lost Battlefield boss is an absolute pain. There are several ads that spawn that straight up tries to kamikaze you, casters which need to be interrupted, while also at the same time not standing in fire on the ground. It's not hard per se, it's just a lot of things all of a sudden, but once you've gotten used to the chaos, this should not be a problem. This boss was surprisingly difficult, dare I say even more difficult than the upcoming Morchi fight. The tank buster is called Decapitate, which applies immortal wounds on the tank and cannot be dodged, blocked or parried. This does a low amount of damage and the tank should be able to deal with it themselves. When the boss does his For the Horde or For the Alliance, it does a significant amount of AoE damage to the group, and this is where you may need to pop some CDs later into the fight. Once the ads spawn, it is very important that the axe thrower is focused down as fast as possible. His axe throw applies a very nasty 12-second bleed called Serrated Axe. The other big boss ability is Blade Storm, which does exactly what you think it does. It is his spin to win time, and if you get caught in it, you will take a substantial amount of damage like we did in our run. If you are a melee healer, make sure you put some distance between you and the boss before it goes out. Your melee DPS is probably not going to be doing the same, so they are very likely to be hit by it. The fight cycles through like this until he is dead, but the longer the fight goes on, the harder it gets, the more bleeds are out there, and the more healing you will need to do. Next up is Morchi, the boss I believe everyone dreads the most in here. I am happy to say that the changes made to the boss has made it very manageable. The main problem live is that there were too many ads spawning, which caused players to spend a significant amount of time trying to trap, slow, CC, or just avoid them, which meant less damage on the boss. At the same time, it caused players to be out in Narnia when Morchi splits and then got caught in the massive frontal she does, and unless you have an immunity, that spells certain death. For us as healers, there's actually very little specific things to touch on here. Most of the damage is avoidable, and if someone gets stuck, be quick to dispel them. If everyone does what they're supposed to, little damage should be going out at all. After a very long trek to the last boss area, we are met with the last trash pack of the dungeon, which means now is as good a time as any to discuss enemy forces percentage. This dungeon is very linear when it comes to percentage. I'm sure there are more efficient ways to gather count, but in general, it isn't something you need to pay too much attention to. This trash pack functions very similar to on live. There are two mobs on the left and right need to be interrupted, and the infinite fury that the dragon in the middle does would probably need a cooldown or two. As a holy paladin, a well-placed divine toll and a subsequent daybreak works perfectly fine. We finally made our way to the last boss, Chronolord Deos. This is also quite the simple boss from a healing perspective, and the biggest thing to watch out for is infinity orbs and their management. Whenever one of them goes off, it does AoE damage to the group, which is pretty manageable, but the problem becomes if both of them goes off at the same time. If that happens, it generally means it's a wipe, as the burst damage that goes out is very, very large. The next thing we have to keep track of is Chronal Burn, which is a spell the Infinite Keepers cast. This needs to be dispelled as soon as possible. If you do not, the targeted player will take a nasty arcane dot for 15 seconds. The damage does ramp up pretty significantly throughout the fight, so be prepared with cooldowns towards the middle to end of this fight. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. I appreciate your support and time, and please let me know what I can do to make the content better. As always, thank you for watching, and please like, subscribe, and share this video.